The incident in the Kalahari Desert shocked the whole world. An indescribable and inexplicable incident occurred in the Kalahari Desert on the border of South Africa and Botswana a couple of years ago. The Air Defense Service recorded an illegal intrusion into the airspace of an unknown flying object, which had the shape of a disc on the radars. Two interceptor fighters were lifted into the air to intercept the object from the Valhalla airbase. One of the fighters was piloted by the commander of the fighter squadron, Colonel Gozin. When approaching an unknown object, the military pilots decided that they were dealing with an ordinary enemy intruder aircraft. But the object suddenly abruptly changed the course of its own flight at the highest speed, which was an impossible maneuver for all recognizable aircraft. The pilots told the ground that they could not visually identify the object, and soon they received an order to shoot down an unidentified intruder. On board the fighter, which was piloted by Gozin, an experimental standard of the Tor .2 laser gun was installed, and the pilot fired a shot to kill specifically from this gun. Colorful flashes were clearly visible on the surface of the object, indicating a direct hit. The downed unidentified flying object began to lose altitude and collided with the ground at high speed. The fall came out in the Kalahari Desert, north of the border between South Africa and Botswana. Information about the fall of an unidentified object in the English Organization of Ufology was provided by some from Azadad Law. He arrived in the UK 30 days after the incident in South Africa. He told about the fall of an unknown object in the Kalahari Desert, and as proof of his own words, he was ready to undergo an examination on the heresy censor. Among the officials who had certain and complete information about the incident, Azadad highlighted the name of James Van Groyen, who, together with South American representatives of NASA, was investigating the emergency action. The fascinating fact was that a week after Azadad's visit, James Van Groyen himself arrived at the company, who handed over an official copy of the document under the heading Committed Secret. The document was written on the letterhead of the South African Air Force, and it carefully described the incident, which received the title Silver Ball. From the data that were indicated in the document, it followed that Air Force officers and ufologists who arrived on May 8, 1989 as part of a group found a silver disc in the desert that crashed into the sand at a small angle. The diameter of the disc was 18 meters and a height of 8.5 meters, and the weight was above 50 tons when the impact formed a funnel with a width of 150 meters and a depth of 12 meters. The sand and pebbles that surrounded the disc were completely melted, as if exposed to high temperature. The first thing that interested scientists was the fact of failure of all measuring equipment. The prerequisite for this was substantial radioactive and magnetic radiation emanating from the object. Despite this, the specialists were able to conduct an examination and make the necessary measurements of the fallen disc. When examining the case, no connecting seams or rivets were found. There were 12 small rounded portholes around the perimeter of the disc. It was not possible to find the material from which the disc was made during the preparatory inspection. The painstaking analysis was carried out somewhat later, and its results were astounding. The analysis showed that the composition of the material of the disc body included magnesium with a special structure of the crystal structure, which is unrealistic to obtain in the criteria of the Earth. Van Groyen also told the professionals that the disc that fell in the Kalahari Desert was transported to one of the air bases of South Africa for the deepest research. The crater formed as a result of the fall was filled with sand and stones to hide the traces of the incident. But the most indescribable thing that was recorded in the document was the description of the meeting of people with representatives of another world. During the external examination, the researchers heard a grating sound that came from the disc. At one point, a hole formed in the lower part of the disc, and two humanoid-like creatures came out of it. The height of the humanoids was 1.5 meters and they were dressed in overalls that covered their bodies. According to the description presented by Van Groyen, the skin of the aliens had a pleasant blue color, there was no hair on their heads. They looked at the Earthlings with misunderstanding with large slightly slanted eyes without visible pupils. Their hands hung a little below the knees, on the limb of the hand there were 3 fingers with longish claws. Webbing was placed between the fingers. Ufologists tried to offer food to the humanoids in order to establish contact, but they did not give this gesture of friendship attention. Moreover, the mysterious creatures showed obvious anger towards Earthlings. When a person tried to approach, they perceived a threatening stance and hissed. One of the pilots of the disc, apparently, was seriously injured. Soon, the humanoids, apparently due to being in an unusual air environment, weakened, and members of the research team were able to take them to a helicopter for transfer to Wright-Patterson Air Base in the United States for the upcoming study. Having received sensational and indescribable information, ufologists immediately contacted the Intelligence Service of South Africa, and its officers confirmed the validity of the incident. They even provided a photo of the fallen object for review. But the fact of disclosure of hidden information did not go unpunished. Van Groyen, after returning to South Africa, was executed by the authorities for transmitting hidden information.